What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. If you ever wondered why when you go into a prospect and you've got this great pitch and it's a great story and they're not reacting to what you're saying, well, we're going to tell you why they're not today. Today, we're going to be talking about the 4 communication styles, how to talk to your prospects. Got a great guest, my personal brain coach. Has worked with me on rewiring the brain, has worked with me with a lot of stuff. We're going to have her on a couple times this year, talk about COVID trauma. But today, we're going to be talking about communication styles. Let me welcome to the show my good friend Hannah and Craig. What's up, everybody?
Hello, hello.
Hannah, I'm not getting your audio right now. You might have to tweak something there on the mic.
Yeah, check your settings. Yeah, I saw on the titles, John, 4 communication styles. And then down below is like, brokers. And so I just wanted to comment. I couldn't wait to hear because in my experience over many, many years and many hundreds of conversations, I typically experience only 3 communication styles. I call them nitwit, dimwit, and halfwit. So I can't wait to hear from Hannah as to what the 4 communication styles are.
Well, Hannah, you there?
Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay? Okay, good. Okay, great. So before I don't know if you want me to just dive right into it, but basically you want to understand how you speak and what your communication style is. So everyone has a communication style, whether or not we know it. So for me, I like things that are fun. So you'll entice me, my friends will entice me to go somewhere because they'll make it enthusiastic. So, oh, it's going to be so great. It's going to be so amazing. And I'm already in, just sold from the enthusiasm. Some people aren't going to be that easily convinced. They want more stats of why it benefits them. And so it's just really understanding your communication style first and foremost, and then understanding the other 4, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so let's go through 4. We got what? Directive, if I remember them correctly. Let's test my knowledge. Directive, indirective, requestive, and nurturing.
Emotive. Indirect is emotive. So that's the enthusiasm. I like enthusiasm. Let's
go through
indirectly,
the 4. Break down the 4.
sure.
Let's talk about them.
So which
if
one
John
you want to
talks
go
about pizza pie, he gets very emotive.
So directive is do this, do that. So there's a certain personality type, about I think it's about 20% of people in the world, according to Dr. Kalber, who's created this model. 20% of people will actually respond well to somebody saying, do this, do that. I, on the other hand, will never go for that. And this is why some people will lose. And there's a break in communication. So at that point, that person will walk away, think you're total whatever, and just not listen to you from there.
That we discovered. So I'll talk about my my therapy with you is Hannah, talking this way to people, meeting new people, trying to help people, and they're not reacting the way you would think they're reacting. And she says, well, that's because they can't hear you. So what do you mean? Well, you're not speaking to them the way they need to be spoken to. And so each of us have our own way of communicating, right? Mine is directive, straight to the point, hardcore, right? East Coast style. And I want to be spoken to that way, right? Hannah, we did some videos where he showed me Mad Men and the main character in there, and it just shows, hey, this is what it looks like for what he wants the communication style to be. And it was, somebody standing at the door and he's like, hey, somebody's knocking on the door, like call him to go. He's like, hey, are you about ready to go? And he's like, yeah, I'm ready to go. He gets offended because that's not how he wants to be spoken to. He wants to say, hey, let's go. You ready? So each of us got to understand 2 things, and we'll dig into each one today is your style, and then understanding the prospect style, right? And I wanted Hannah to come on because this is so important in sales communication. So I'm going through my sales pitch with Hannah, and I go, what do you think of this opening? And she's like, it's horrible. She's like, you're only going to speak to less than 8% of people with that opening. And so you're immediately offending people. They're not going to hear you. If we just tweak a few words, it'll boost up to what, 48%, I think it was the number. And so let's dig into that. Talk about what the majority of people are
Yeah,
on a
that's twice the
communication style.
popularity of the president, so 48 would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, harmonizers are people who like you to know that you actually care for them. So, starting off your day or starting off your conversation with, "Hey, how are you? How are you doing?" It really matters to me that you're here. Those are people who are nurturing and want to actually connect with you. John's not that type of person, is he? He wants to get straight to the point. But that is the best way to start a conversation because the likelihood of you meeting somebody at that level of communication, it's actually about 35% of the world. 25% is okay with that. And majority of them is okay with that, but doesn't really matter to them. Some people like myself, the emotive type, will be happy with a high five, will like contact. So this is just like a short way to communicate. It's just how do you greet people? How do you actively engage them right off the bat so that they're attentive to what you have to say? So I don't know what part you want me to go into. It's a pretty heavy topic. There's so many different pieces here, John. Is there something that you want me to
Well,
touch on
let's do it
specifically?
this way. In my experience, I've only experienced a few times with John because I can't stay awake that late. But after midnight, John can be very, very nice and friendly. So let's focus on the daylight hours, business kind of conversations, as that being the setting.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah.
when just kind of talk about, I think I can't remember, my opening was similar to like Oren Clafson, straight to the point. Let's get started. Hey, thanks for being here. Let's get started. What is a more softening way? Because we got different personality types, right? People, you got the owner who's going to be more directive, the CFO, maybe indirective, and then HR is just a whole nother world and needs the nurturing. And so, talk about some of the openings or words or things you can use to work that communication style.
Sure. Okay. So, people of higher stakeholders, the owners, they tend to be more directive or thinker based. Um, and that means they like logic, facts. How does it benefit them? And or something more exciting of how does it bring you to the top? How does that make you the winner? How does that type of focus into whatever it is you're pitching. So, like you said, HR needs more nurturing. It depends on who you're speaking to and understanding who your audience is at that point. So, let's say you're in a meeting and you'll have your stakeholder. Who do you typically have in your meeting, actually? Or
We
in
usually
this
have
made up
either
scenario?
we either have, we always want the owner, but it may be the CFO, financial person, or the HR person who handles the benefits.
For
Okay.
I'd say the majority of the listeners of this will probably have a human resources manager, director, VP in the meeting, who by their very nature is in charge of compliance policy, processes and administration for the company. So the lens through which they see the world is very different. And of course, they have 17 other job duties other than talking about healthcare once a year. So they have a very complicated job.
Awesome. So let's look into those roles right off the bat. So you want to identify what kind of communication they already speak to. So HR, you already understand, is more nurturing. You want to say, "Hi, I'm so happy you're here," or "Thanks for taking the time out of your busy day." That stuff will bring them into listening to you much more closely. They'll be more caring towards you. They feel like they're seen. The CFO, it sounds like a numbers guy right off the bat. So I would say thinker base, pure numbers. Here's how it benefits you. Let's talk your speed. The VP, it depends. Like I said, it depends on their personality. Some of them like to be number one. Some of them like to be seen as number one. Here's how it benefits you. Here's how it'll promote you. Um, Something that puts them at the top or makes them better than somebody else. And then I forgot who else you put into the room.
Owner, just the owner, VP, owner.
Owner and VP, they're kind of the same. So yeah, that it depends on their personality. Sometimes, most of the time, it's how do I get you to the top? How do I get you to see this benefits you? Whereas HR, somebody who's more caring, how does it benefit the team? How does it look like as a group? So these are things that you want to look for initially in understanding who your audience is and how do you identify them. Typically, sometimes the roles are kind of a dead giveaway. Like you said, HR tends to be more nurturing, but for your directors or your managers, it's kind of important for you to understand the other four pieces of communication. So if you want to go into it, I'd be happy to. So directive is do this, do that. Very straightforward. No questions, just do it. Emotive, like I've already displayed, is it's fun. Let's go do this. It's indirect. It's not me telling you what to do directly. If you do, then I'm just going to leave. And then there's the caring. It would mean so much for me if you stayed, or it would mean so much for me if you park my car or whatever. It would help me out so much. That's more caring. There's a nurturing aspect of me and you relating to one another. That's the third one. And then let's see. So there's there's nurturing, there's direct, emotive, requestive. Requestive is, can you do this for me? It's just a basic question. That's it. Can you do this for me?
Could that be joined with, I need your help. Can you do this for me?
Yes, absolutely. So who would you be speaking to at that point? I need your help.
Yeah.
Can you do this for me? Who would you be speaking to?
That's usually going to be an HR person.
Yeah, it's just nurturing.
They're the majority of managers that are in a typical meeting with our audience.
Absolutely. Yes. That's a great combo. And you could combine all of this.
And
I need this done.
This is building rapport in the beginning of the meeting. Is this the way to do it through the communication style?
So this isn't actually building rapport. This is actually how to get somebody to move and do you a favor or to appeal to them. This is how to speak to them in a way that actually resonates. When you're interacting with other people and you're trying to build rapport, it's always good to start off with nurturing. It's really nice to meet you. I'm happy you're here. It's just always something cordial. You'll hit a greater portion of the world if you did that, rather than jumping in hard and fast with here's what we need, here's the numbers. It's too abrupt for many people. Give them an easing into. Typically in sales, it's the first 5 minutes of just building rapport. Is that how you guys teach it, or how do you guys go about teaching sales?
I sort of threw up in my mouth just then, but
which part?
Let's just say, yeah, everybody has different styles, and you got to figure out what works for you, right? And you have to understand your audience. It's absolutely true. So you have to be willing to, be an actor if you need to be. If that's not your natural style, you better figure out how to make it that way if you're selling to people who aren't as directive as you.
Yeah, I think here's I'm just pulling up what I had written, that opening line.
Sorry, I lost
and again,
your audio.
guys,
Is it just me?
My audio, you guys can
I
hear
hear
me
you
or
fine.
no? Okay.
Yeah.
You can hear.
So
Oh man.
so
Maybe I'm having issues.
basically the opening line that we wrote, and again, guys, I've lost my patience to deal with certain personalities or certain role types, HRs or this or that. But in the beginning, you've got to talk to everybody. And even Craig, hates HR. I've always hated HR, but he had to adapt and get training and understand how to speak to them. So, an opening line was, on the Zoom meeting, it's like, hello, I'm happy we both could coordinate calendars to meet today. How are you? And it's not, you don't want to be ass kissing or sound desperate. So you want it in a way where you're both of importance, but you're not making yourself more important than them. And so that's kind of one opening line I think we came up with, if you recall, Hannah. Can you hear me or no?
Sorry, I missed. Now I can hear you. Can you say that again? Sorry.
Yeah, no, this was one of the openings that we worked on was, I'm happy we both could coordinate calendars to meet today. How are you?
Yeah. Something simple, and it doesn't have to be super nurturing where you want to throw up. Just something to where you can relate to them. There's a bit of a connection between you and that person ever so quickly. That's okay. It just touches on you matter to me or your time matters to me. That alone will do it for many people.
Okay. Um, now, like you said, there's 4 different types, and what percentage is most people? And how do I take maybe if I'm directive, how do I kind of twist it to hit more different personalities in that opening conversation? Because the most frustrating thing for us is we go in there and we're talking about savings, or we're talking about this and we're talking about that, and the person just isn't. It's just not clicking. It's blah. And I think, like you've told me, it has to do with the communication style. You've already lost them. They're not listening to you.
So that's an interesting question because it sounds like how do I get them back into listening to me when you've already lost them? That's really the question,
I
right?
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do I get you back into listening to me? So again, you have to figure out what their style of communication is. At that point, if you could try it all. There are actual facial features of a person that makes it easier for you to tell, and that's kind of a deeper dives. But we could use you as an example, John, if you want.
Sure.
Or you
Yeah,
could
let's
use
pick on
myself.
John.
You can
Yeah,
pick on
well,
me all you
I could
want.
also use you, Craig, if you want. So if you could put us as the 3 people for the visual. So there are certain characteristics for your face that'll determine who you're speaking with. Like for me, I'm smiling a lot. I'm smiling a lot. I'm a little bit more upbeat typically. Um, so immediately you would be able to tell she likes enthusiasm. I like that. Um, for you, John, if you don't mind me picking on you,
Go ahead.
um, there's a furrow in your brow right there. That will tell me that you're a persister, and that tells me you like to be spoken to with questions. You like me to ask you questions. And there are some creases, sorry to point them out, but there's some creases right here on your forehead. That means you're a thinker. That means you like logic. That means you like numbers. Craig is also a thinker, I believe, and
Hey, just
uh,
goes on the holiday. Yeah.
yeah, and you are also a rebel, I believe. So you like enthusiasm as well. And people have more than one. We're all dynamic. We have all of them. All of us, all of these speak to us, but one speaks more to us than the others. So it's really important not to just use one and stay monotone in that realm. It's going to be very boring very quick, and there's more people in the room. So in order for you to speak to them, you have to identify what they are. You could look for these characteristics in their face to see if something stands out to you. So does that answer your question? It's a little bit more
Absolutely.
detailed. I could go into it more.
Are we going to do palm reading too?
Yeah, palm reading. I remember you telling me when I first started. Well, maybe this was when you were selling me on sign up for the program. You're like, look, if you learn what I'm going to teach you, be able to communicate with people, you basically be able to manipulate them. You get them to do whatever you want because
Oh,
you
you had him.
know how to talk. You know how to talk to them. So obviously, I was sold
So
right away. And why is that? That just the communication style allows us to get them to do necessarily what we want versus them not doing it.
Oh man, because people are not listening to you. I'll use a real life example for me. I'll use a real life example. So I dated a coach, a businessman, doing well for himself. He's a directive type. Again, I'm a rebel. I don't do well with being told. Many people don't do well. About 80% of the world don't do well being told, do this, do that. In a simple discussion where I was at his place, he asked me to move my car into the garage, but he didn't tell me. He didn't ask me, he told me, move your car in the garage. At that point, I just left. I left. Not even a conversation. Well, there was some conversations, but at that point, I didn't
emojis,
feel like I was, huh?
some emojis.
Oh, yeah. Some emotions were there. At that point, I just left. It's not worth a conversation for me because I'm offended, right? And we don't know that we're offending people, or we don't know that we're if in that case, you're hurting just because somebody told you to do this, do that. Does he mean to offend me? No, absolutely not. But did he lose my interest? Did he lose my attention? Yes. So there's consequences in how we communicate and how we deliver things. And it's just a matter of, what is your intention? Is your intention to make the sale and communicate and connect with another individual? Or is it to just have it your way and speak the way you want to? Then you appeal only to 20% of the world. Then your volume goes down, or whatever um, impact it has on you. So it's really a matter of, what do you want? And what are you willing to do to get that? Are you willing to connect with another person and learning their communication style? This also goes into relationships and other avenues, even with children, speaking to your children. Or are you just going to be stubborn and have it your way and find somebody out of that 20% that speaks your language? And again, now there's a numbers game that you have to consider as well. Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally does. And in all fairness to the fellow that you used to date, I will tell you, having been successfully married for almost 40 years, that sometimes women hear things that men didn't say because of the tonality in their voice. And so I would just comment that tonality is really important when you're talking to somebody, especially if they're a different natural style than you. You have to be super careful. And compounded by the fact if you're opposite sexes. What do you think about that?
Yeah, talk about tonality. And you can pick on me as much as you want, because those are the issues that I have, that we talked about many times. Many
Yeah,
times.
well, typically, if you're a directive person, there's no tone, actually. It's usually do this. But even that is offensive to many people. And again, there's no weight, there's no emotional charge. It's just a matter of communication style that's broken between these two individuals that are conversing. You know, so he doesn't have any charge. There's absolutely nothing that's, you know, malice about that conversation, but how it was delivered because of how I like to be spoken to. It's just a complete break in that communication. And like you said, I heard something different that wasn't there. Or yeah, I created a story that wasn't there. So in order for you to avoid having this miscommunication and being misheard, it's
Mhm.
important for you to understand who you're speaking to, how they like to be spoken to, and then the trivial things won't matter.
Yep.
Is there a way to work your way in the beginning of the conversation to get, because we're trying to gather intelligence in the first meeting, right? We're cold calling people. You get a lot of referrals. You get a lot of people raising their hand saying, I got problems. So it's easy to go boom right into questions. Us, we've got to soften it up a little bit, give them a little bit. Is there a way in the communication to pivot that over to asking questions where you're basically interrogating them to qualify them?
Hmm. So
You don't
you're
want it to
asking,
sound like an interrogation.
Yeah.
ah,
That's the trick.
so, oh, got it. And then what kind of questions are you normally asking?
We just, maybe asking regularly about their health care, and,
How do you
how did
feel
your
about your employee benefit program? What do you think the employees think about it?
Mm.
Right?
So here's sorry to interject.
Yeah.
So here's something I taught you, right? Asking permission. Is it okay if I asked you a few questions about whatever? Then at that point you have full permission to go and dive into their stuff. That's usually like an easy way to get about it. Is it okay if we talk about this now? At that point, their mind is reframed to, hey, this is what we're focusing on. This is what we're blah 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 blah. I don't know what your topic is with
That's what it sounds like.
yeah, sorry. But whatever topic that you want to focus on, you have their full permission to go there, and you can even tweak it to where it can appeal to that person. Is it okay is it okay for me to ask you questions about whatever topic because this is going to impact your bottom line? or this is going to impact you and your employees, or it's going to impact whatever. You can make it personal to them to why they would say yes, but having that permission and that question, that ease to reframe their mind and reframe the topic. So now you're fully focused on this thing and they gave you access to this information, that would just be a big changer, I think. At least, I don't know, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, what we mean, Craig, were coming up with was, how do we pivot? And Zoom is different. Like, look, when we're in meetings in person, it flows it flows a lot better and more naturally to get into things. With Zoom, it's very, it's hard to read people as much over the Zoom. But what me and Craig came up with is, and again, we study Oren Claff, and he says don't talk about you, don't talk about your company. But I think what we did is we give them a little something. Hello, how are you? Da da da. Let me bore you to death for 30 seconds about who we are. Here's who I am. Here's my accolades, why I'm a professional, why I'm an expert. So why you should listen to me. I'm legit. I think that's important to let them know out the gate. Then you want to tell them about your company. And I used Belford stuff that says, the reason why you haven't heard of us is because, maybe why you haven't heard of us is because, and then go to, to make our meeting more efficient, would you mind if I asked you a couple questions about your current healthcare situation? And now it's just a soft toss pivot where you're getting them to commit to answering the question. So now they're expecting it and they're okaying it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but please don't be the boring broker, right? What's your deductible? How much is your premium? Yeah, no, have an intelligent conversation. Be prepared to say, do you find that there's a relationship between your medical plan and your turnover rate, or your ability to recruit new talent in a post-COVID world where everybody just wants more money? I mean, tie the thing to business situations. Have you found that your 401k hardship withdrawals have gone up as your deductibles have increased? Because that's the number one reason for hardship withdrawals on a 401k. And if you can figure out a way to ask good questions, they'll tell you everything you want to know without you having to be a features and benefits interrogation.
Would you want, sorry.
Go ahead,
So,
Anna.
using the 4 styles of communication, do you want to see how it shifts that same exact question or same exact sentence that you just had and switch it into the 4 styles so you could see how
Ooh.
it's demonstrated?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Go
can you
for
say
it.
it again? Sorry, can you say the original thing that you just said?
Oh, what I said?
I think it was Craig. Craig said something about
Oh, don't
401ks.
just don't talk about features and benefits. I said, did you find that 401k withdrawals went up as your deductibles went up on your medical plan? Because the number one reason for 401k hardship withdrawals is the unaffordability of the medical plan for employees.
Okay, so speaking with a person that likes to be on top, how would you phrase it to entice them? So, and how I would go about it. So, let's say it's a personality that likes to be on top, that he's more of a what I call a promoter. Um, he would want to know why it matters to them. So, would I find that would not be an appealing question for him? For him, and I'm going to use him as a
Mm-hmm.
as a whatever as an example. I would say whatever the benefit is right off the bat. What would be the benefit of what you were stating? What would that be? I mean, is it
Would it
to
would it be
increase your
would you
401?
feel better about your 401k plan if less people were taking withdrawals out of it and saving for retirement because they really enjoy working for you and now they're going to be able to stay here and afford to retire because they're in the new
Got it.
401k?
So how I would phrase that? Wouldn't you want to keep? Wouldn't retention or wouldn't company retention be something that's appealing for you? Don't you think that? Don't you think that employees want higher 401k programs? Don't you think that's going to keep them in your company? Something along those lines.
Yeah,
Does
yeah,
that
yeah.
make
Would it
sense?
would a growing 401k balance tend to keep somebody here longer than if it was
I would say,
shrinking?
wouldn't you agree that I'm going to
Yeah.
be assumptive?
Okay.
So, wouldn't you agree that your employees want a better 401k program so that they could stay here? Or would you think that do you think that your employees are looking at other jobs, you can you get the pain right there.
Yeah.
Don't you think they're looking for other employers that have
Okay.
better programs? Don't you think that's the first thing that people look for when they're looking for benefits? Then,
What's the next
because
style?
right, telling them, telling them right off the bat would be, uh, these aren't styles, these are archetypes now. Sorry, we're kind of commingling
Okay.
them. But this is all tying into communication. The next one would be more logical, number based. So I don't know the numbers or anything like that. You would just put in stats. You would
Sure.
probably come in with a spreadsheet. Like, hey, look at these stats of this comparison of this company to this comparison of company. Now, don't
Yeah.
you agree that blah, blah,
According
blah?
to this 2021 study, 47% of people taking a hardship withdrawal was to pay an unexpected medical expense. What do you think about
Did you
that?
know that? Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Another one would
That's a
be,
more directive personality, or is it
that's actually a thinker. That's more
think?
logical, requestive personality type.
Okay.
Because that's important to them. Stats, numbers, data, all of that stuff. HR, how would you pose it?
I'd use their favorite F word.
Which is?
Do you think it's fair that your employees can't afford to pay the high deductibles built into your plan design, and so they have to take a 401k withdrawal to steal money from their retirement plan in order to afford to receive care that they deserve?
Do you know what I would say?
What would you say?
I would say, don't you think your employees' families would want something to look forward to at the end of their retirement? Don't you? What do you think about these families? What do you want to give the people? Do you want to give them blah blah blah? That's what I would say because
You
they're
paint them a
nurturing.
picture.
Yeah, they're nurturing. You want to give them something that they're going to connect to, and they're going to connect to families. They want to connect with somebody that they want to care for, nurturing. They want to nurture somebody. So that's how I would shift that conversation, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Directive. What do you say to the directive person?
The directive person, like I said, is a person that wants to be on top right off the bat. Um, so it depends on who you're appealing to. So probably the VP, excuse me. Um, so this would put your company at blah 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 better than these companies. Don't you know that more companies are doing this? You're behind. You're behind. Your company's way behind. Blah 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 blah. Jurisdiction or standard code or whatever it is. You're not keeping up with the times. They want to be above. They want to be out there. Um, and that's going to move them. They're like, "Oh my god, everyone's already ahead of me, blah, 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 blah. I need to act now. I need to act now. I need to do this now."
Create urgency. Tell them they're behind. How do I? Let's flip over to understanding your communication style. How do we find that out or know what that is?
So I actually have a test for people.
Mm.
So it's easy for me to talk to you and go about that, but I actually have a test that they could take, and it's going to include a 30-minute consultation with me to dive into their communication style. But I would suggest you already know what you like. So how you like to be convinced. Do you do things for fun? Like, if you were to decide on a vacation, do you do it based on fun? Do you do it based on logic? Oh, it makes sense for me to go here because whatever. Um, do you do it because no one else is doing it? Oh, and the pictures are going to be amazing. Do you like, why do you do what you do? And the vacation's super easy because hopefully we all go on vacation. Are you going because of the family? You're going to go visit family. Those things are really easy to pick out if you know what to look for. But that's a little quick preview for people. If you want to get to know your communication style, that's an easy way to understand why you do the things you do. Other than that, you could go into my link and create or schedule a call with me where we dive deep into your personality.
Yeah, we'll give them the link at the as we wrap up in a few minutes here. I want to just talk one last. I know we had one talking point about breaks in communication because I've had some shit go really well, and then all of a sudden something was said, and you don't know what it is. Maybe sometimes, and this has happened on dates. This happens all across the board, right? Everything is good and dandy for 2 hours, and then you challenge the person on one thing, and they don't like it. Uh, what do you do in this with breaks in communication?
So it's important, again, for you to understand your personality type, your communication style. Like if you're a person that's only 20%, that only resonates with 20% of the world, then the likelihood of you communicating to a person that speaks your language isn't going to be high, right? So understanding how you speak so that you're not confused, that's going to be a very important piece to it. But is your question, how do you get them back, or how do you apologize, or how do you reconcile? What
Yeah,
exactly
I
do you
mean,
want
like,
to know?
how do you get them back reeled in? Because, you know, it's like I've had a recent meeting that I had, it was going well, and I think I went down the rabbit hole on one little thing, and I knew it too while it was going on. I went too far on one point that I usually don't do, and I could feel the mood of the meeting change and them shut off more.
Okay, so I'm going to give you um, like a pretend situation. So if I'm communicating to somebody that's more into being number one and I hit them with all these stats, they're going to be bored. They're going to be looking at their phone. It's not going to resonate with them at all. They're going to be bored, potentially, depending on how you deliver that message, right? Um, so at that point, it's important for you, again, to know who you're speaking to and how they like to be communicated to. And you could just try all of these different styles that I've just suggested, and all the little variations of how to say one thing. That 401k example that we just did, I gave you four different styles, if not five different styles, to communicate. So playing with how you deliver a conversation, it's important for you to have that kind of prepped in your mind so that you know who you're talking to, and you could just try it out, see if one piques their interest, and then at that point, speak only in that way to them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. As we wrap up here, I didn't. What is your website again? Because I want to just give people your link as we do final thoughts here. I know that some of the things that you can help with, you've helped me with, is identifying your communication style, working whether personal stuff or business. I mean, you work with primarily entrepreneurs, salespeople, understanding limitations of your style. What else is in that assessment, that questionnaire that you do?
Oh, the questionnaire. So what's gonna happen with the questionnaire is I'm just gonna get a preview of your profile, and then you're going to take a personality test. I'm going to look into your personality style and archetype you, to understand how you like to be spoken to, what your pitfalls are, your distress signals. So every archetype has a key distress signal, and how do you get yourself out? So there's also psychological needs and how to stay afloat. So as salespeople, we can go up and down pretty quickly, and it's important for you to understand how to meet your psychological needs daily, in order for you to stay afloat, if that makes sense. So that's what it's
Well,
going to encompass.
we got to have you on to talk about shiny objects.
Oh, yeah,
Oh
sure.
yeah, this industry is really good at that stuff. Let me ask you a quick question that somebody asked online. Are you a believer in agendas for first meetings, or do you just go with the flow and feel the conversation?
I mean, you're always going to have an agenda for the meeting. Otherwise, why meet, right? Like, that's my personal take on it. It's important for you to understand what that looks like for the other and for the individual, so that you could come into an agreement. And I believe you're talking primarily about sales, but even in relationships, it's important for you to know what that agreement looks like in order for you to move forward together.
We're talking about
Otherwise, why
business.
meet?
We're talking about sales because we don't have enough
Yeah.
time for you to get into John's dating problems.
Well, even sales is business, right? ABCs always be courting. So if you're going to move forward together in an agreement, whatever that is, romantic or business, it's important for you to understand what they get out of it and what they want too. So it's important for you to have your agenda and also them know what theirs is, and so you can collaborate and move forward. That's my opinion. Other people can disagree,
I
but
like
that's how I
agenda.
really
I like
believe.
agendas. You got to have an agenda. I call it track to run on, like a ledge to go back on in the meeting in case you get lost. At times you can get lost and get off track and be, silent and use it to get back on track. But it's not, automatically it has to go down this path. I mean, based on the conversations with your expertise, you feel will go to different directions based on what the prospect is saying or how the meeting goes. For
What's your
sure.
boy Wolf of Wall Street say? Yeah, you need
Yeah.
a track to run on.
Yeah. Yeah. Always a track is good to run on. That's why, with the deck on Zooms and stuff like that, you can cheat and look and just kind of have some opening lines or bullets that you want to talk about on that topic or that slide that you're on. What else do you cover too, just so our viewers know? They may be interested in learning more about their brain or rewiring their brain or other things, relationships. I mean, you do a whole ton. What else do you do for people?
I do reprogramming the subconscious mind. So I do psychosomatic release. So there's a connection between the mind body connection. So if I'm speaking to you or if you're interacting with somebody, hormones are constantly releasing. So I help stop the stress hormones from releasing into the system. I've helped people stop having panic attacks in one session, and it goes well for sales as well. Um, I've helped somebody negotiate $1 million deals because they got the jitters out, basically. It also
And we got
works
a lot of
for
those. We got a lot of those. They have to wear Depends when they go to the big meetings.
yeah. Yeah, it's really common. And then we also have a story in our mind. So every single time we think of something, we create a visual concept. So it's important for us to change that story in a deep dive so that you can have an outcome that you actually want rather than what's playing in
Those old
Talk,
tapes are
talk,
nasty, aren't they?
your head.
talk to me about one thing before we wrap here. Is COVID trauma. We had a discussion last week or a couple days ago or last week about it. I said, maybe I'm not as exciting or passionate as I once was. And she said, that's COVID trauma. Talk about that. That's real.
Yeah, global pandemic, that is definitely real. We all experience trauma from the pandemic, whether it's not seeing somebody that we love, losing somebody, or just being cooped up and being isolated and alone. So we're all kind of experiencing whatever version of uh, the recovery or the emotional trauma that came out of from that experience. So when I was talking to you about it, I was talking to you about loss of purpose. A lot of people have phased in what we call in process communication model. People phased. That means they were under distress for about 6 months or more, or still currently in distress, which ultimately changes their personality type. Then it brings about confusion into their lives, and they don't understand why certain things don't ignite them in the same way. And they're trying to figure out who the new me is. Um, and so many different aspects about that and how it affects them in real life.
Yeah, you're working with a lot of entrepreneurs, so you're seeing it from many entrepreneurs. So if you're a salesperson that's lost maybe the fire, might make sense to go through that questionnaire because it's going to be helpful to understand. I mean, the best investment you can make is in your brain, I think. And we all need a lot of work, a shit ton of work regularly. Any questions for you guys in the audience? Let us know as we wrap here. I see Robert has when I'm cold calling, I may know only what I've read about the prospect before I approach. How can I know enough about his or her personality type to correctly approach them?
Okay. So this is where you would understand what they look like and how I've sat down and analyzed John a little bit. So the forehead wrinkles, or like the crinkling, the thinking lines, they mean they like to be talked to logically. Again, with me, I'm a little bit more enthusiastic. You see me smiling all the time. We like energy and humor to break it up and keep my interest. I think Greg is more he's very calm. He still likes enthusiasm and he's very logical. So you would want to look at their facial features if there's some giveaways. Typically, people who are nurturers, they dress really nicely, they wear makeup, and they take care of themselves because they like to take care of stuff. Also, plants are giveaway. It depends on where you're meeting them. If you're meeting them over Zoom, there's certain things that can be
What if
given
it's
away.
what if it's a cold call?
Cold call. Telephone.
Call.
Okay. Telephone, there's less features for you to know. You could actually hear in the way that they speak to you. So immediately if somebody says, "Hi, how are you?" I'm well, how are you? And thanks so much for meeting me. That again it's really important. The moment that they say, "What do you want? What's this about?" Get to the point. These are people who are about facts and things. Okay, well, how does this affect the questions that they ask, and how they communicate to you is going to be a dead giveaway. Okay, well, people who like logic, they want credibility. They want to know stats. They want to know numbers. Who did that? Who did this? Where did you get that from? Those are inquisitive people who want stats and they want data. People who are more nurturing, they can be a little bit more quiet. Depends. You can ask them, "Hey, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?" and interject between them. And seeing how they respond to you will give you the cues that you need to archetype them, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us, Hannah. We appreciate the insight. We'll definitely have to have you back on to talk more about some other topics. Hannah's website.
You'd be interested in coming back, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. This was fun.
All right.
There you go. MyMindEvolve.com. I put it in the comment section. My Mind Evolve. Check it out. Fill out the questionnaire. Go from there. Hannah, last final thoughts?
Oh, yeah. By the way, the questionnaire isn't on there. You have to go to a link. The link's available if you click on how to get out of burnout, that training. And at the end, it'll tell you.
Go slower. How to get out of burnout training?
No, go on to mymindevolve.com, and there you're going to click on to the link that says how to get out of burnout. And at the end of that video, it'll display my link to get into scheduling.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thanks so much for joining us. It was fun. And to everybody else, we'll see you next week. Same place, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Thanks for joining us, guys.
New, John. How to say thank you to Hannah. Salamat.
I did say thank you. You're deaf. You're old. Bye.
No,
take care, guys. Be good.
Tagalog.